Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let us continue with our tafsir of Surah Aal-Imraan bihawlillahi wa quwwatih, and we are on ayah number 71. قال الله تعالى يا أهل الكتاب لم تلبسون الحق بالباطل وتكتمون الحق وأنتم تعلمون. So continuing on with the previous ayah, Allah Jalla wa Ala is addressing the Ahlul Kitab and the Yahud in particular. However, this ayah applies to all people of the Ahlul Kitab even today. And he is asking the question by way of rebuke. Why do you talbisun, from labasa yalbisu, to mix something up? This is to mix up so as to create confusion. Why do you mix up the truth with falsehood? So what he means here is that the Ahlul Kitab will come with things which are truthful, but there will be some falsehood mixed in. So for example, they might say something like the last prophet is indeed a true prophet, but he is sent to the Arab, he is not sent to Banu Israel. So there is truth in that and there is falsehood. The first part is true and the second part is false. And he also says وَتَكْتُمُونَ الْحَقِّ, from كَتَمَ يَكْتُمُ كِتْمَانًا, to conceal. Why do you conceal the truth? So this would be things like they conceal the had punishment of the adulterer, as in the famous hadith where he covered up the ayah of stoning to death in their own scripture, and other matters like concealing the description of the last prophet which is found in their scriptures. وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, whilst you know. Meaning to say you're doing all of this and you know what the truth is. So it's not like you have ignorance as an excuse. So reflecting on this ayah, we take the immediate lesson that we need to be on guard against the Ahlul Kitab, because they may come with things which on the surface may appear to be truthful. However, they're going to mix it up with some element of falsehood. Now the question is, are you able to differentiate between the truth and falsehood? The only way to do that is to learn your deen properly and to have a firm grounding in the basics of your deen. Otherwise, you could get caught up in their falsehood. We also learn the great sin of concealing knowledge. Yes, the ayah is directed to the Ahlul Kitab, but it applies to us as well. If you are asked about something pertaining to this deen, and you know what the answer is, you must spread the knowledge. You must not conceal it. Or for example, if you see someone doing that which is wrong, or perhaps you see some specious arguments making their rounds, then you need to speak up and refute the falsehood, because if you do not, then you would be guilty of concealing knowledge. Also, when they mix up the truth with falsehood, then this is in effect concealing the truth, because the truth is all or nothing. You cannot have 99% truth. No, it needs to be 100% or it is 0%. So if you come with 99% truth and you mix it up with 1% falsehood, then in totality we treat it as falsehood. Ayah number 72. وَقَالَتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ آمِنُوا بِالَّذِي أُنزِلَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَجْهَ النَّهَارِ وَاكْفُرُوا آخِرَهُ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. In this ayah, Allah Jalla wa Ala teaches us of one of the plots of the Ahlul Kitab, in particular the Yahud. A party of them would say, and in the tafasir it has been mentioned that this ayah came down regarding Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf, who was one of the rabbis and one of the leaders of the Yahud. In any case, the ayah says ta'ifa, a group of them or a party of them. So not all of them, but this is likely to be from their leaders, because they are the ones who normally plot and plan and conspire. Anyhow, a group of them say, believe in that which has been revealed to the believers, meaning the Quran. So believe in the Quran. Wajh al-Nahar. Wajh means face. Face of the Nahar, Nahar meaning daytime. So this means the beginning of the daytime, because the face is the beginning part of your body, right, the front of your body. Wakfuru akhirahu, and make kufr at the end of the daytime. Why? لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that perhaps they may return, meaning that the Sahaba and those people embracing Islam may return from Islam back to shirk. Okay, so how does this plan work? Some of the Yahud are going to embrace Islam at the beginning of the day, and people will find out about this. And so they will be praying with the Muslimin towards the Kaaba. The tafsir says that this ayah came down when the Qibla changed from Baytul Maqdis to the Kaaba, and this happened in Al-Madinah. So anyway, these Yahud will be pretending to be Muslimin, praying with the Muslimin and so on. At the end of the day, they will declare that they are leaving this deen because they have found it to be falsehood. Now the effect this is going to have on some people is that they will think to themselves, well look, the Yahud, who are people of knowledge, they embraced Islam and they experienced it from the inside. And if they say that this deen is falsehood, it is not what their scripture foretold, then surely they have to be right, because they are, after all, people of knowledge and scripture. So if they deem Islam to be false, having seen it from the inside, then perhaps it really is false, and perhaps then we should leave as well. This is the idea of the plan. Because of course the statement of the one who's seen Islam from the inside carries more weight than the one who is looking from the outside in. And this is one of the reasons why the murtad is executed if he publicly announces his riddah, because such a person is not just leaving the deen and keeping it on a personal level like that. Nobody cares about people personally, we all have our own problems to deal with. But such a person, what they are actually doing is encouraging others to leave as well. They are in effect saying, look, we've seen the deen from the inside, we have knowledge, and we can confirm that this is totally false. And this is going to rub off on other people with weak iman. So this is the corruption that the murtad creates. And this is the reason why he is to be executed. So reflecting on this particular ayah, we take the obvious lesson that the Yahud, even back then, they were planning and plotting and conspiring to pull people away from the deen, to make people averse to Islam. Okay, what about today? Well, we say the same thing today. In fact, it is probably worse in the digital age, where the kuffar can amass millions of followers almost overnight, and they can reach the far corners of the world. And they too are planning and plotting to make people averse to Islam. This is obvious, we can see what they're doing. They have huge media platforms, they have a huge number of followers, they have finances, people funding them. It's a huge movement. So we say this because we need to be aware of such things. However, do we need to fear such conspiracies and plots and plans? The answer is no. As long as we keep to our deen, and as long as we proclaim the invitation to Tawheed and invite people to worship Allah Jalla wa Ala alone. So as long as we play our part, we have literally nothing to fear from the plots and plans of the kuffar. In fact, on the contrary, their plots and plans will lead to their own downfall. Allah Jalla wa Ala has already told us, Inna kayda shaytani kana da'ifa. The plot of shaytan was ever weak. He teaches us, إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه فلا تخافوهم وخافوني إن كنتم مؤمنين. It is only the shaitan who makes you fear his allies, so do not fear them, but fear me if you are believers. So we have literally nothing to worry about, but that's on the condition that we play our part. Ayah number 73. وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا إِلَّا لِمَنْ تَبِعَ دِينَكُمْ قُلْ إِنَّ الْهُدَى هُدَى اللَّهِ أَنْ يُؤْتَى أَحَدٌ مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيتُمْ أَوْ يُحَاجُّوكُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّكُمْ قُلْ إِنَّ الْفَضْلَ بِيَدِ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. In this ayah, Allah Jalla wa Ala continues narrating to us what the Yahud, or at least a party of them, were saying and conspiring. They were saying, وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا, do not believe in anyone except the one who follows your deen, meaning Judaism. So believe in no one. Do not believe in any other deen except Judaism. So do not believe in the Prophet. Do not believe in the Sahaba and what they tell you about Al-Islam. Now at this point, Allah Jalla wa Ala interjects with a statement from his own self, not from what he's narrating of the Yahud, but a statement of his own self. We call this Jumla i'tiradiyya, a sentence which is interjected and it is not part of the original speech. He says, say, indeed the guidance is the guidance of Allah, meaning the only true guidance comes from Allah. And if it contradicts the guidance of Allah, then it is not guidance, rather it is misguidance. And then he goes on, narrating to us the speech of the Yahud, أَن يُؤْتَى أَحَدٌ مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيتُمْ. So it means, do not believe in anyone except the one who follows your deen, that anyone could be given similar to that which you were given. So these Yahud are saying to their fellow Yahud, do not believe in anyone apart from the Yahud, that anybody other than the Yahud could be given the divine scriptures, the blessings like the man and salwa, which we spoke about in Surah Al-Baqarah, and also other miracles like the sea splitting for Musa alayhi salam and so on. All of these revelations and blessings and miracles, they're saying, do not believe that anyone else could be given the likes of this except the Yahud. In particular, the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ, they cannot be given what the Banu Israel were given. So this is the first thing they are ordering their fellow Yahud. Do not believe in anyone other than the Jews, that they could be given the likes of what the Banu Israel were given from Allah Jalla wa Ala in terms of the blessings. So there's one thing. And the second point they make, أَوْ يُحَاجُّكُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّكُمْ. أَوْ means or, but here in English we would translate it to nor. So do not believe in this nor that. So they're saying, do not also believe that these people, the Muslimun, could argue with you before your Rabb, meaning on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So do not believe that the Muslims will have any argument against you on Yawm al-Qiyamah, because they want the fellow Yahud to believe that they are upon the right path, they are the chosen people, they are the people of the prophets and the scripture. The Arab are not. Henceforth, the Arab have no argument that they can make against the Yahud on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And in response to this, Allah Jalla wa Ala ends the ayah by saying, say that the fadl, the grace, meaning the guidance, as in Allah guiding whomsoever He wills, and sending the prophets and messengers to whomsoever He wills, say this fadl, this grace, is in the hand of Allah. He gives it to whomsoever He wills, and Allah is wasi'un alim. Wasi', expansive, meaning in all His perfect attributes and qualities, He is expansive, He's not limited. And alim, He is knowledgeable, as in He knows all things, past, present and future, and also propositional knowledge. So if a particular event were to happen, what would ensue and what would be the consequence? This propositional knowledge. All of this is with Allah Jalla wa Ala. So reflecting on this ayah, we learn a bit more about the schemes of the Yahud. As Allah Jalla wa Ala exposes them, we may take from this that exposing the schemes of the kuffar is a good thing, just as Allah exposes the schemes of the Yahud here. So sending out some spies or some kind of undercover agent or sting operation or something of that nature to expose the schemes of the kuffar is a good thing, if it can be done safely. And like we mentioned before, this Jumla i'tiradiyya, which says قُلْ إِنَّ الْهُدَى هُدَى اللَّهِ, it seems to come out from nowhere. Now why is this? It appears that the reason behind this is that Allah Jalla wa Ala is refuting their schemes by affirming that the guidance is the guidance of Allah and affirming His Tawheed. Now if that's the case, then this would agree with what we said earlier on, which is that no matter how much the kuffar plot and plan and scheme, it will have no effect on us, as long as we are keeping firm on our deen and are calling to Tawheed, because this is the antidote to the conspiracies of the kuffar. It is the call or the da'wah to Tawheed. It is the antibiotics of the germs of the scheming of the kuffar. Also, the last section of the ayah, when Allah talks about His fadl, He's refuting this idea that Yahud are the only ones who have been given scriptures and prophets and miracles and so on. Allah is telling us no. The grace is with Allah. He gives it to whomsoever He wills. He gave it to Banu Israel, that is true. And now He has given it to the Arab. He gives it to whomsoever He wills. It's not like only the Yahud are entitled to the grace of Allah. Also, we take that Allah has a will because He says He gives it to whomsoever He wills. This is one of His attributes. Of course, His will is a divine will. Our will is a human will, and they are completely different. They are the same on the most basic level, as in will is a will, but in its manifestation, they are different. And this is the same with all attributes of Allah Jalla wa Ala, which He shares with us. They are the same on the most basic level, and the basic meaning, that's the same, but in its manifestation, they are completely different. So that's to say the kayfiyah is completely different. We may also take that Allah has a hand. When He says that the grace is in the hand of Allah, we can understand it in both ways, and they're not contradictory. So firstly, we can understand that Allah has a literal hand, so that will be a divine hand, not a human hand. And secondly, we would understand it that when He says the grace is in His hands, that Allah is in charge of His grace and gives it to whomsoever He wills, so that He has authority over His grace. And we also take from this ayah two names of Allah Jalla wa Ala, Wasi' and Alim, along with their attributes, which of course befit His divine majesty. Ayah number 74. يختص برحمته من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. يختص from اختص, يختص اختصاص, to specify someone. He specifies, or He chooses if you like, whomsoever He wills with His mercy, His rahmah, meaning His hidayah in this case. This is what it primarily refers to. Otherwise, the word rahmah means kullu khair wa ni'mah, all types of goodness and blessing. And Allah is dhu, meaning owner of, al-fadl al-azim, a great grace. So any time you experience goodness both in the dunya or deen, this is from the grace of Allah, and He gives it to whomsoever He wills. So reflecting on this ayah, we find again that Allah has a will. We find again that Allah chooses whom to guide, whom to misguide, whom to give His grace, whom to deprive His grace from. These are all His divine prerogatives. And all of this happens in accordance with His wisdom. It is not just some kind of a divine dip that He takes. No, it is in accordance with wisdom. We may also take that if we know that Allah gives to whomsoever He wills, and that the grace is totally in His hands, then it only makes sense for us to make dua and to ask Allah and beseech Him to shower us from His grace and from His mercy. And just in case somebody says, but hang on, if Allah chooses whom to give His grace, then what's the point in making dua? Meaning Allah will give whomsoever He wills to give. What difference would dua make? We say dua makes a difference because it is part of the qadr. So Allah Jalla wa Ala will shower His grace upon you through the dua that you make. So the dua that you make is also part of the qadr of Allah Jalla wa Ala, as we have a cause and effect, and both are creations of Allah. So the cause is your dua that you make, and the effect is that Allah showers you with His bounty. So we have a cause and effect. So for example, you are ill, you take medicine, Allah heals you through the medicine. The medicine is the cause, and the healing is the effect. Both are creations of Allah, and both are part of His qadr. This is why making dua makes sense. هذا والله أعلم.